Welcome to Monk's Temple. Before we begin, find a comfortable position. Perhaps you're sitting, or lying down. Maybe you're on a walk. Wherever you are, just for now, let the world outside become soft. Let the sounds around you become part of the background, like distant rain on a roof. Here, in this space of words, we are not adding more knowledge. We are gently remembering something your soul already knows, but your busy mind has forgotten. We are remembering how to be free while still being fully alive. Imagine you are standing in a wide, open field just before dawn. The air is cool and still. In your hands, you are holding dozens of beautiful, delicate, helium-filled balloons. Each one is a vibrant color. One is your worry about a person. One is your fear of a future outcome. One is your tight grip on a memory. One is your need for a specific person's approval. One is your anger at a situation you can't change. Your arms are stretched high, holding all these strings, keeping every single balloon from floating into the vast sky. You've been holding them for so long your shoulders ache. Your fingers are numb. You are so focused on keeping this colorful, trembling cluster earthbound that you haven't noticed the field around you, the first birdsong, the hint of light on the horizon. Detachment is not about popping the balloons. It is not about declaring they are ugly or wrong. It is the simple, brave act of opening your fingers, one at a time, and letting the strings slip away. It is watching with clear eyes as that particular worry, that specific fear, that old story, floats up and away, growing smaller and quieter, until it is just a speck of color merging with the brightening sky. And as you release each one, your arms can lower. Your shoulders can relax. You can finally feel your own breath again. You can turn your gaze from the disappearing dots in the sky to the solid, nurturing earth beneath your feet, and the breathtaking dawn now breaking right in front of you. You are not left with nothing. You are left with everything that truly belongs to you, your presence, your peace, this moment. This is our journey. Not to become empty, but to become spacious enough to hold your own life without strain. To start, I want to tell you a story. It's not from a scripture, but from a long train ride I took across a vast, quiet landscape many years ago. The train was an old, slow one, traveling through the night. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the observation car, which was empty save for one person, the conductor, an older man with a kind, weathered face, sitting quietly and looking out at the dark shapes of hills and trees rushing past. On the small table before him lay his official pocket watch, its chain gleaming in the dim light. I remarked on its beauty. He picked it up gently. "This watch," he said, "doesn't control the train. I don't look at it and say, speed up, slow down. The train has its own engine, its own schedule, its own relationship with the tracks and the hills." He held the watch in his palm. "This tells me my time. It tells me when it's my moment to walk the aisles, to check tickets, to make an announcement. My power is in my duties, performed on time. The train's journey is the train's journey. My peace depends on knowing the difference." He looked back out the window. Most people spend their lives trying to be the engineer with a conductor's watch. They fret over the speed, the terrain, the other trains on the line, things they were never given the controls for. And because they're so busy trying to drive a train they can't drive, they forget to walk their own aisles. They miss their own moments. He clicked the watch open, looked at it, and smiled. "It's time for my rounds." "Excuse me." And he left, his own timing perfect, leaving me to watch the uncontrollable, beautiful night stream by. That conductor knew a secret: exhaustion is not about the work of your own duties, it's the fatigue of pretending you have duties that were never yours. If this idea of keeping your own time on a moving train speaks to you, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It's like leaving a lantern lit on your own path, so you can always find your way back to these quiet conversations, ****. His lesson points us to the first and most crucial map we must draw, the map of your domain. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture an ancient, stone well in the center of a sun-drenched courtyard. This well is you. The water deep inside it, cool and clear, is your spirit, your peace, your essential self. The courtyard around the well is your life, your relationships, your work, your projects, your home. And beyond the courtyard walls is the vast, wild country of the world, other people's choices, global events, the past, the unpredictable future. For most of our lives, we are taught to abandon the well. We are praised for climbing the courtyard wall and running into the wild country, chasing storms to change their direction, trying to irrigate other people's deserts with our limited bucket, arguing with the wind. We come back parched, exhausted, our clothes torn by brambles, and we wonder why we feel so empty. We look at the well in the center of our own courtyard and think it's not enough. We think the real water must be out there, somewhere in the struggle. But the truth is the opposite. All the water you will ever need is within your own well. Your power, your true duty, is to guard this courtyard. To draw from your own well. To keep the bucket clean and the rope strong. You cannot stop the droughts in the wild country. You cannot make it rain on command beyond your walls. But you can ensure that within your own boundaries, there is sustenance, there is clarity, there is refreshment. When you operate from this understanding, a profound shift occurs. You stop trying to manage the weather and start appreciating the architecture of your own sanctuary. This is not selfishness. It is the ultimate responsibility. A person who knows their own well is never a burden. They are an oasis. This brings us to one of the loudest, most persistent winds that blows over our courtyard walls, the need for approval, for validation. It sounds like this: do you see me? Do you like what you see? Am I good enough? Do I belong? Imagine your sense of self as a unique, ancient tree growing in your courtyard. Its roots are deep in your well. Its branches are your expressions, your love, your work in the world. Now imagine you've hung countless tiny mirrors from every branch. Each mirror is turned outward, facing the courtyard wall, hoping to catch a reflection of approval from someone passing by outside. Your entire energy is spent twisting in the wind, trying to angle the mirrors to catch a favorable light. Is that person smiling? Did that person nod? Did that person look away? The tree is no longer growing toward its own sun. It is contorted, strained, its leaves rustling with constant anxiety, waiting for the reflection to change in the mirrors. Detachment from approval is the careful, gentle act of taking down each mirror, one by one, and turning it around. You are not destroying the mirrors. You are simply turning them to face you, to face the tree itself. Now, they reflect your own strong trunk, your own unique pattern of branches, the dappled light filtering through your own leaves. Your worth is no longer a rumor reported by passers-by. It is a direct experience. You see yourself. And from that place of self-seeing, you can interact with the world outside the wall from a place of wholeness, not hunger. A visitor's compliment becomes a sweet bird landing on a branch, not the water that makes the tree live. A criticism becomes a leaf brushed off by the wind, not an axe to the root. I knew a composer who worked for years on a symphony. It was her heart's work. When it was finished, she submitted it to every major orchestra and competition she could find. Rejections came, one after another. Too unconventional, not for our audience, we don't see its commercial potential. She was devastated. The scores sat in a drawer for a year, a monument to her perceived failure. Then, one afternoon, she was cleaning her studio and found a recording of herself playing a simple early draft on her piano. She listened. And she heard it, not as a product for an orchestra, but as music. The pure joy of it, the emotion, was still there. That week, she did something radical. She uploaded the full score and a computer-generated rendition to a small, obscure online library for independent composers. She didn't promote it. She listed it under a pseudonym. She let it go completely. 2 years later, she received an email from a young film director on the other side of the world. He had stumbled upon her piece in that digital library. He wrote, "This music has been the soundtrack to my film editing for months. It feels like it was written for my story. May I license it?" The film went to a minor festival, but for her, that was irrelevant. The moment of true success had already happened. The moment she stopped composing for the mirror of the orchestral gatekeepers and finally heard her own music for itself. Her validation had been outsourced, her detachment returned it to its source, the external appreciation that later came was a bonus echo, not the foundational sound. This is the quiet revolution of detachment. It moves the source of your truth from a distant, flickering star back into the steady hearth of your own being. And from this hearth, we can look at one of the most challenging skills, the skill of letting go. We often think of letting go as something that happens to us when we are finally tired enough. We say, "I had to let it go." But that implies a final surrender to exhaustion. True letting go is not a collapse. It is an intentional release, like a gardener pruning a rose bush. Think of something you're holding on to, a regret, a hope for a person to change, a past version of yourself. Now, imagine it is a branch on your inner rose bush. This branch is not dead. It may even have a few leaves. But it grows at a strange, awkward angle, crossing the center of the bush, blocking sunlight from the healthy new canes, and every time the wind blows, it scrapes against the others, causing damage. Holding on is your refusal to prune it. You think, it's still green. It's part of the bush. What if it's the branch that will eventually bear the most beautiful rose? So you let it grow, and the whole plant becomes misshapen, stressed, and less able to bloom. Letting go is taking your clean, sharp clippers and making the cut. You do it with respect. You thank the branch for its time. You acknowledge it was part of the journey. But you see clearly that its continued presence is harming the whole system. The moment you cut it, there is a shock of emptiness. But almost immediately, light floods into the center of the bush. Energy that was wasted sustaining that awkward growth now rushes to the healthy canes. The plant sighs with relief. It was not meant to carry that shape. Letting go is horticulture for the soul. It is not an act of destruction, but of profound care for the overall vitality of your being. We cling because we fear the empty space the pruned branch will leave. We confuse the familiar shape, even if it's painful, with safety. But nature teaches us that empty space is not a vacuum. It is an invitation for light, air, and new, healthy growth. This skill requires us to become fluent in the language of reality. And reality's primary dialect is impermanence. Everything changes. The flower blooms, shines, and drops its petals. The storm gathers, rages, and passes. The joyful moment arises, is experienced, and fades. Our suffering is not rooted in the dropping, the passing, or the fading. It is rooted in our furious, silent argument with these facts. We want to freeze the bloom, stop the storm, cage the joyful moment. We build a museum for butterflies and wonder why the air inside becomes so still and lifeless. In a tradition I witnessed, monks would spend days creating an intricate, breathtaking mandala from millions of grains of colored sand. It was a universe in miniature, a masterpiece of patience and devotion. People would come from miles to see its beauty. At the very peak of its completion, with the final grain placed, the head monk would perform a ceremony. Then, he would take a small brush and sweep a corner of the mandala, scattering the sand into a waiting cloth. The visitors would often gasp. Within an hour, the entire, days-long labor was gone, mixed into a bundle of plain, multicolored sand. The monks were not sad. They were serene. I asked one later, how can you destroy something so beautiful you worked so hard on? He replied, the beauty was not in the sand staying in place. The beauty was in the act of creation, the focus, the intention. The meaning was in the making, not the keeping. If we clung to the form, we would miss the truth it points to, that all form is temporary. The sweeping is the final, most important lesson of the mandala. It teaches the hand to create and the heart to release in the same breath. They were masters of process, not prisoners of product. Their art was a verb, not a noun. We are all creating sand mandalas with our relationships, our careers, our projects. We pour our colored sands of love, effort, and hope into beautiful, temporary patterns. Detachment is not the refusal to create. It is the wisdom to create fully, love the process deeply, and then, when the wind of change comes, or when it is simply time, to open your hands and let the pattern dissolve back into the source from which it came, grateful for the fleeting masterpiece. This ability to be with the flow of reality, rather than be crushed by its current, depends entirely on that first map we drew, knowing your well, your courtyard, your wall. It depends on knowing what is within your power to tend, and what is the wild country you can only witness. Imagine your peace, your inner stability, as a still, deep pond in the center of your courtyard. The water is clear. The surface, when undisturbed, reflects the sky perfectly. Now, every thought, every interaction, every external event is like a pebble dropped into this pond. Some pebbles are small, a minor irritation, a passing worry. They create tiny ripples that quickly settle. Some are larger, a significant conflict, a deep fear. They create waves that take time to calm. But here is the crucial point. You are not the pebbles. You are not even the ripples. You are the pond itself, the vast, receptive space that holds the water, ****, the pebbles will always fall. That is life. But you can learn to deepen and widen your pond so that no single pebble, no matter how large, can churn it into chaos. You can learn to let the ripples arise and pass without believing they have changed your fundamental nature. This is the practice of emotional sovereignty. It begins with a simple, revolutionary act, the pause between the pebble's drop and your reaction to the ripple. For most of our lives, we are taught to jump into the ripples. Someone says a harsh word, plunk asterisk, and we immediately dive into the turbulent water, thrashing about, shouting, adding our own waves to the chaos. We confuse the reaction with the event. Detachment is the skill of staying on the bank. To feel the splash, to watch the ripples spread, to observe their pattern, and to choose, from the stable ground of the bank, what action, if any, serves the clarity of the pond. You may decide to speak. You may decide to be silent. You may decide to walk away. But the decision comes from observation, not from drowning. I once visited a tiny workshop of a clockmaker renowned for repairing the most delicate antique timepieces. His daughter, a young woman of maybe 20, worked with him. I was asking him a question about a mechanism when a customer burst in, angry and loud, holding a modern wristwatch. He slammed it on the counter, accusing them of botching a simple battery replacement. He was disrespectful, his words personal and cutting. I felt my own face grow hot with indignation for them. The old clockmaker listened, his face neutral. His daughter, however, continued her work. She was reassembling a tiny, fragile carriage clock under a magnifying lens. Her hands did not shake. Her breath remained even. She didn't look up. After the man finished his tirade, the clockmaker said quietly, "I'm sorry you're upset. Let me see the watch." He examined it. "This isn't one of ours. You've mistaken our shop for another." The man, flustered, grabbed the watch and left without an apology. The moment the door shut, I turned to the daughter, amazed. "How could you stay so focused? Weren't you angry?" She finally looked up, her eyes clear and calm. "My teacher," she said, nodding to her father, "taught me that the inside of a clock is a world of precise tension and release. A steady hand and a quiet mind are required to navigate it. If I let every loud noise from outside the workshop jerk my hand, I would break the fragile pivots I'm trying to heal. My first duty is to the world under my lens. The noise is just weather." She had mastered the pause, the customer's anger was a pebble. She felt it splash, but she refused to let it determine the tension in her own hands or the focus of her mind. Her pond remained deep and still, because she knew her role was not to argue with the weather, but to tend to the intricate, silent world of gears in her care. This is what it means to be unshakable. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings don't conduct you. They inform you, like instruments on a dashboard, but you remain the driver. When you begin to cultivate this inner steadiness, something remarkable happens to your relationships. You start to see people not as sources of your peace or disruption, but as fellow travelers, each carrying their own weather. You stop taking their storms personally. Imagine everyone you meet has an invisible climate around them. Some people carry a warm, sunny climate, they are easy, nurturing, peaceful to be near. Some carry a turbulent, stormy climate, full of drama, demands, and lightning strikes of criticism. When you are untethered, you unconsciously step into their climate and start reacting to its weather as if it's your own. You catch their chill and start shivering. You get caught in their downpour and feel drenched. You absorb their atmospheric pressure and get a headache. Detachment is the realization that you have your own climate. You carry your own weather system, your inner peace. When you interact with someone, you can meet them at the border of your climates. You can acknowledge their storm. I see it's raining for you right now. But you do not have to leave the shelter of your own atmosphere and run into their field to get wet. You can offer an umbrella from the boundary line. You can say, "That sounds difficult," without having to feel difficult yourself. You can hold a space for their pain without letting it become the barometric pressure of your own soul. This is where we must dismantle a great and painful illusion, the illusion that love means commingling your climate with another's, regardless of the cost. That to care is to be equally drenched by their storm. This is not love. This is enmeshment. It is the loss of self under the guise of devotion. True love is two stable climate systems meeting, sometimes sharing sunshine, sometimes offering shelter from each other's passing rains, but always maintaining the integrity of their own center. Two neighbors had adjacent plots of land. The first gardener, Anna, was meticulous. Her plot was orderly, with straight rows, rich compost, and thriving plants. The second gardener, Ben, was chaotic. His plot was overgrown, weedy, and he constantly battled pests and blight. Ben admired Anna's garden and began to lean over the fence, asking for help. Anna, wanting to be kind, began to spend hours in Ben's plot, pulling his weeds, diagnosing his plants, offering her own compost. She neglected her own garden. Her straight rows began to blur. Weeds crept in. Her plants grew weaker. Exhausted and resentful, she finally confronted Ben. "I've given you all my time and my best advice, and your garden is still a mess." Ben looked confused. "I just like having you here," he said. "I never really liked gardening that much." Anna walked back to her own plot, heart sinking. She saw the truth. She had tried to pour her ordered climate into his chaotic one, hoping to change its fundamental nature. In doing so, she had allowed her own climate to become infected with disorder. The next season, she rebuilt her fence, not a tall, hostile wall, but a clear, strong boundary. She tended her own garden to brilliance. When Ben leaned over, she would smile and say, "Your soil looks dry today," or "I found this book on pest control helpful," but she kept her feet firmly in her own soil. Ben's plot remained chaotic. But Anna's garden became a sanctuary, not just for her, but for bees, birds, and eventually, for Ben, who would sometimes sit on his side of the fence and simply enjoy the sight and smell of something thriving. She learned to love her neighbor without abandoning her own plot. Her clarity, not her labor, became her greatest gift. This is the power of a boundary. It is not a rejection. It is the definition of self that makes genuine, non-toxic connection possible. From this place of clear boundaries and inner climate control, we can look at one of the most subtle attachments, the attachment to being understood. We carry a deep, childhood yearning for others to see our map, to validate our courtyard, to agree with our assessment of the weather. When they don't, we feel a loneliness that can be sharper than any criticism. So we become explainers. We offer footnotes to our emotions. We provide appendices to our decisions. We write manifestos for our silence. It is a relentless, thirsty labor. Think of your essence, your truth, as a unique, ancient tree, as we said before. Now, imagine you have been hired as a tour guide for this tree. To every passerby, you feel compelled to explain its botany, its history, the meaning of its knots, the direction of its growth. You are constantly talking, pointing, interpreting. You are so busy explaining the tree that you never get to sit under its shade, feel its bark, or listen to the wind in its leaves. You are a stranger to your own being. Detachment from the need to be understood is the moment you fire yourself as the tour guide. You put down the megaphone. You walk away from the gate. You go and sit at the base of your own tree. You lean against it and close your eyes. Let the passers-by speculate. Let them misinterpret. Let them walk on by. Your tree does not need their correct analysis to be a tree. Its reality is independent of their commentary. Your peace comes from your direct experience of its presence, not from the accuracy of their brochures. When you stop explaining, you perform a powerful filter on your relationships. The people who are meant to be in your courtyard are not those who demand the full tour before they enter. They are the ones who feel the shade of your tree, appreciate its presence, and respectfully ask, "Tell me about this one," from a genuine place of curiosity, not entitlement. The demand for explanation often masks a desire for control, to categorize you, to decide if you fit their landscape. Your silent, unexplained being is the ultimate declaration of sovereignty. In a village, there was a baker who made the most incredible, crusty loaves of sourdough. People came from neighboring towns for his bread. He was a man of few words. Customers would ask, "What's your secret? Is it the water? The flour? A special starter?" He would just smile softly and hand them the warm loaf. Food writers would come, asking for interviews, for the story. He would decline, simply pointing to the bread. This infuriated a particular critic, who wrote, "His refusal to explain his art is arrogance. It keeps the magic for himself." The baker read the review and said nothing. The next week, he held a simple workshop. He didn't speak. He simply demonstrated, from start to finish, the entire process: the feeding of the starter, the mixing, the folds, the resting, the baking. Everyone saw there was no secret. It was all there: the quality ingredients, the patient attention, the consistent warmth. The magic wasn't in a hidden trick, it was in the unwavering commitment to the visible, tangible process. The critic, in demanding an explanation, had been asking for a shortcut, a legend, something to consume mentally. The baker, in his silence, was offering the truth itself: the work, the love, the time. His detachment from his own story allowed the product to speak its pure, unadorned language. People finally stopped asking for the secret and started tasting the bread. Your life is that loaf of bread. You can exhaust yourself trying to explain the recipe, the conditions, the timing to everyone who takes a slice. Or you can simply let the quality of your presence, your warmth, your substance, your resilience, speak for itself. The right people will taste it and understand, without needing a single word. This practice of inner steadiness, climate control, and ceaseless explanation naturally leads us to confront the grand illusion of control, especially over other people. This is the desert where most of our emotional energy evaporates. We must understand this: trying to change another person is like trying to teach a river to flow uphill. You can stand on the bank and shout instructions. You can build elaborate dams and diversions with your pleas, your logic, your tears. But the river, following the deeper law of gravity and terrain, will always find its way back to its course. Your efforts leave you hoarse and exhausted, with only muddy boots to show for it. The river is not being defiant. It is being a river. Your healing, your power, begins the day you stop giving lectures to the water and instead ask yourself a different question: do I want to live by a river that flows in this direction? And if not, can I move my camp to a different part of the bank, or seek a different stream altogether? An archivist was tasked with preserving a collection of love letters from the previous century. The ink, unfortunately, was of a poor quality and was fading rapidly. She tried everything: controlled lighting, special cases, digital scans. But the originals continued to fade. She became obsessed, working late nights, trying chemical baths to stabilize the ink, her own health fading with the pages. Her mentor found her one evening, despairing over a letter that was now just a ghost on paper. The mentor said, "You are trying to command the past to stop being the past. The ink was always meant to fade. That was its nature. Your job was never to stop time. Your job is to honor what was legible, preserve its meaning in a new form, and then let the paper return to its elemental state." She closed the lab that night. She finished the scans, stored the originals respectfully in the best conditions possible, and wrote a beautiful curator's note about the nature of ephemera. The exhibit was powerful precisely because it acknowledged the fade. She detached from the impossible task of preservation and embraced the sacred duty of stewardship. She stopped fighting the chemistry of the past and started tending to the understanding of the present. People are like that ink. Their behavior, their choices, their capacity, these are their chemistry. You cannot stop someone's inner nature from expressing itself, any more than you can stop iron from rusting or poor ink from fading. Your healing begins when you stop trying to be the chemical stabilizer for someone else's instability. Your duty is stewardship of your own heart, preservation of your own peace. You can observe, you can acknowledge, you can choose to keep a scan of the good memories, but you must let the original follow its own course, even into fade. This is not coldness. It is the highest respect for reality. And from this respect blooms a compassion that is clear-eyed and strong, not mushy and self-destructive. We have now reached a pivotal point in our courtyard. We have the map. We are learning to stand guard at the gate. We are tending our own climate. We are ceasing our endless explanations. We are letting rivers flow and ink fade according to their nature. We are standing now at the very center of your courtyard, before the well. The map is drawn. The gate is guarded. The climate of your inner world is becoming steadier. Now, we must learn the most vital practice: how to draw water from your own depths, especially when the sky outside is cloudless and giving no rain. This is the art of self-sufficiency. Not the lonely, brittle kind, but the serene, rooted kind, like an ancient tree that has learned to find moisture deep in the earth, independent of the passing showers. Think of your emotional and spiritual energy as this water. For so long, perhaps you have relied on external springs to fill your bucket. The spring of someone's praise. The spring of an accomplishment. The spring of a perfect circumstance. When these springs flow, you feel full. When they dry up, you feel parched, desperate, scanning the horizon for the next source. You become a beggar at other people's wells. Detachment is the process of digging your own well so deep that it taps into the aquifer, the vast, underground river of peace that is your birthright. This aquifer does not dry up. It is not dependent on the weather of external events. Its water is cool, clear, and constant. Drawing from it is your fundamental skill. How do you draw from it? With the bucket of awareness and the rope of breath. Let me explain with a story. On a remote, storm-lashed coast, there was a lighthouse keeper who lived alone. His job was simple: keep the light burning through the night. The storms could be terrifying, waves like mountains, wind that screamed like a beast. Many before him had gone mad from the isolation and the fury of the elements. But this keeper had a rhythm. Every single evening, just before dusk, no matter the weather, he would perform a ritual. He would climb the spiral stairs to the lamp room. He would clean the great lenses with a soft cloth. He would carefully fill the reservoir with oil. He would check the wick. And then, he would light the lamp. The act itself was meditative, precise, and utterly in his control. Once the light was lit, he would go below. The storm could rage. The waves could crash against the rocks. But in the heart of the lighthouse, there was a steady, warm glow and the soft, rhythmic hiss of the flame. He told a visitor once, "I don't control the storm. I don't even watch it for long. My peace is in the lighting of the lamp. That is my well. The storm is just noise outside the thick walls." His sanity was preserved not by calming the sea, but by perfecting his ritual of light. His inner well was the disciplined, loving attention to his duty. The storm's presence or absence did not determine whether he had light, his own hands did. Your ritual of light might be 5 minutes of silence in the morning. It might be consciously feeling your feet on the ground. It might be writing 3 things you are grateful for that have nothing to do with anyone else's behavior. It is the action you take that connects you to your aquifer, regardless of the emotional weather outside. This is drawing your own water. When you practice this consistently, you begin to change your relationship with need. You stop needing situations to be peaceful for you to be peaceful. You stop needing people to be kind for you to feel secure. Your stability becomes internally referenced. This is the birth of true emotional adulthood. From this place of internal sustenance, we can look at one of the most beautiful fruits of detachment, the purification of love. So often, what we call love is a tangled vine of attachment, fear, and need. I love you, therefore you must make me feel safe. You must validate me. You must stay, always, as you are. This is love with conditions, love with hooks. It is exhausting for both people, because it is a transaction disguised as an emotion. Detachment untangles the vine. It allows love to be what it truly is, a free, clean stream flowing from your well to another, asking for nothing in return. It is the difference between handing someone a beautiful, lit lantern and saying, "This is for you, to light your path," versus handing them a lantern and chaining their wrist to it, saying, "Now you must hold this and stay near me, or I will be in darkness." A sculptor fell in love with a piece of rare, beautiful marble. He could see the figure trapped within it. With great passion, he began to work. But as he worked, he became possessive. He would get angry at the hardness of the stone in some places, begging it to be softer. He would panic when a chip fell away differently than he planned, seeing it as a flaw. His love for the idea of the finished statue became a storm of anxiety. The work became a battle. He grew resentful of the very stone he claimed to love. One day, exhausted, he put his tools down. For weeks, he didn't touch it. He just sat with the block of marble. He stopped seeing the statue he wanted and started seeing the stone that was. Its veins, its coolness, its weight, its ancient history. When he finally picked up his tools again, his energy had changed. He was no longer trying to force a vision onto the stone. He was collaborating with it. He would tap gently, listen to the sound, follow the natural fissures. The figure that emerged was more powerful and alive than his original plan. He realized, I was not loving the marble. I was loving my fantasy. When I let go of the fantasy, I could finally meet the reality. And that is where true creation, and true love, lies. He detached from the specific outcome and attached to the sacred process of communion. His love became pure, and in that purity, the art flourished. This is love without clinging. You appreciate the person's essence, their marbleness, without demanding they conform to the statue in your mind. You offer your best self. Your skillful tap of support, your presence, without needing them to chip away in a specific way to prove their worth. If the relationship is meant to be a masterpiece, it will emerge from this mutual, respectful collaboration, not from one person's desperate carving. This pure love extends beyond people to our dreams and outcomes. Which brings us to the practice of non-attachment to results. Our culture worships the idol of the outcome. The grade, the job title, the salary, the number of followers, the destination. We are taught to tie our entire sense of worth to these finish lines. But this is like a farmer planting a seed and then staring at the ground, demanding to see the fruit, digging it up every day to check its progress. Such a farmer will only kill the seed. The detached farmer does the work, tills the soil, plants the seed, waters it, protects it from pests. And then, they tend to the rest of the farm. They trust the process of growth, which happens in darkness, silently, according to laws they did not write. Their worth is in the quality of their tending, not in the weather that will ultimately affect the harvest. In a valley between two towns, an old bridge washed away. The towns agreed to build a new one. They hired a master bridge builder. He was meticulous. He sourced the best stone, designed a graceful arch, and trained a crew. In his ledger, he did not have a single column for completion date or praise from townsfolk. He had columns for stones cut today, mortar mixed correctly, arch support integrity, crew safety. Every evening, he would review only those columns. A town elder, impatient, would come and say, "Will it be done by the festival?" The builder would reply, "The arch is stable." The elder would huff, "But will it be beautiful?" The builder would say, "The joints are tight." Frustrated, the elder left, thinking the builder arrogant or simple. The builder was neither. He knew a profound truth: if he focused on the integrity of every single action within his control, the bridge would inevitably be both strong and beautiful. If he focused on the future praise or the deadline, his anxiety would make his hands shake, his judgment falter. The day the bridge was finished, it was a marvel. The festival was long over, but the bridge would stand for centuries. At the opening, the builder was not cheering. He was quietly testing the handrail with his weight. A child asked him, "Are you proud?" He looked at his ledger, then at the bridge. "I am at peace," he said. The work was honest. His detachment from the outcomes of praise and timing allowed him to attach fully to the integrity of the process. The magnificent result was a natural byproduct, not a chased-after trophy. Your life is that bridge. Your daily ledger is your point of focus. Did I act with integrity today? Did I speak with kindness? Did I do my work well? Did I respect my own boundaries? These are your columns. The bridge of your life's meaning and legacy will be built from the sum of these honest entries. Obsessing over the final shape, *, will I be successful? Will I be loved? Will I be happy? *, is like the elder pestering the builder. It adds nothing to the construction and only strains the builder's nerve. When you practice this, drawing from your own well, loving purely, focusing on process, you undergo a fundamental identity shift. You stop identifying as the manager of the universe and start identifying as the steward of your soul. This stewardship has one final, profound requirement: the ability to sit with what is, without immediately trying to fix it, label it, or run from it. This is radical acceptance. Imagine a clear glass containing water and mud. Your life experiences stir up the mud. Your instinct is to panic. To grab the glass and shake it harder, trying to force the mud to settle, which only makes it murkier. Or to run and find a filter, a solution, now. Detachment is the practice of setting the glass down on a steady table. You step back. You watch. You breathe. You allow the natural process of gravity to pull the mud, slowly, gradually, to the bottom. The water becomes clear again. Not because you fought the mud, but because you allowed it its own journey to the bottom. Your stillness provided the condition for clarity to return. Much of our suffering is just shaking the glass. I was taught the art of tea by a master who embodied stillness. One step in the ceremony is waiting for the water to reach the exact right temperature, not a rolling boil, but just before, when tiny pearls of air form at the bottom of the kettle. I, in my eagerness to perform well, would stare at the kettle, my body tense, willing the bubbles to appear. He would gently say, "You are boiling yourself to make the water boil." He would close his eyes and simply listen. He could hear the change in the sound of the water, a soft, gathering song. He was attuned to the process, not impatient for the result. He explained, "The water heats according to the fire. You are neither the water nor the fire. You are the witness. Your only task is to pay such close attention that you know the perfect moment. If you rush it, the tea is bitter. If you miss it, the tea is dull. The power is in the attentive wait." His detachment from his own anxiety allowed him to be perfectly aligned with reality's timing. He didn't try to control the heat, he controlled the quality of his attention. Your emotional pains, your unresolved situations, are like that water heating up. Your anxious stirring, the overthinking, the what-ifs, the frantic planning, is like turning up the fire too high. It creates a bitter experience. Detachment is turning down the fire of your mental reactivity and simply listening to the situation. Listening for the truth of it. Listening for the natural point of readiness, where action becomes obvious and effective, not forced and desperate. This completes the inner circuit. You draw water from your own well, self-sufficiency. You offer it as pure love, without chains, unconditional regard. You focus on your honest work, not the harvest, process orientation. And you wait with attentive stillness for clarity to emerge, radical acceptance. You are no longer a leaf blown by every wind. You are the deep, ancient tree. The winds still come. Some are gentle breezes. Some are gales. But your response is the same. You bend, you sway, you let the wind pass through your branches, and you remain rooted. Your identity is not in how much you sway, but in your unwavering connection to the ground of your being. You have drawn water from your well. You have lit your inner lamp. You have learned to sit in the stillness while the mud settles. Now, how does this transformed you move through the world? How do you interact, engage, and connect without losing the center you've so carefully cultivated? Imagine you have spent your life in a crowded, noisy bazaar. Everyone is shouting, bargaining, grabbing, selling, needing. The energy is one of lack and scramble. You thought this was the only world. Then, you discovered a hidden door in the back of a shop. You opened it and found a vast, silent garden, your inner courtyard. At first, you only visited. Then, you began to live there. Now, when you walk back into the bazaar, everything is different. You hear the same noises, but they no longer sound like commands. You see the same frantic movements, but they no longer pull you into their rhythm. You are in the bazaar, but you are not of the bazaar. You carry the silence of the garden within you. This is detachment in action. From this place, we can reframe our entire relationship with influence and impact. When you are rooted in lack, you try to influence others through force, manipulation, or neediness. You want to change them to make yourself feel safe or valued. This is exhausting and rarely works. When you are rooted in abundance, the abundance of your own well, your influence changes nature. It becomes like sunlight. The sun does not beg the flowers to open. It does not negotiate with the leaves to turn green. It simply shines, consistently, impartially. And in response, life unfolds. Some flowers turn toward it. Others, in deep shade, do not. The sun does not take offense. It continues to shine. Your grounded, peaceful presence is your sunlight. You stop trying to convince people to change. You simply embody the change you wish to see. Those who are ready for that light will naturally orient toward it. Those who are not, won't. And you are free from the burden of managing their growth. In a village known for its turbulent debates and constant conflicts, there arrived a teacher who never spoke in public. He took a small room on the edge of town, planted a garden, and lived simply. He would greet people with a nod, help when asked, but never offered unsolicited advice or engaged in arguments. At first, people thought him simple or arrogant. But over time, something curious happened. People began to seek him out. Not for lectures, but just to sit in his garden. They noticed that after time in his presence, their own minds felt quieter. Their problems seemed less overwhelming. They would leave with their own insights, as if the silence around him had held up a mirror to their own noise. He never taught a doctrine. He never argued a point. He was simply present. Undisturbed. Clear. The village slowly changed. Conflicts were resolved more easily. People began to listen more. An elder once asked him, "What is your method?" The teacher smiled and pointed to a still pond in his garden, reflecting the sky. His method was not to create ripples, but to become so still that others could see their own reflection clearly. His detachment from the need to fix, preach, or control created a magnetic field of peace that was more transformative than any sermon. This is the power of being, rather than doing. It is influencing by resonance, not by pressure. From this stance, our relationship with loss and ending transforms utterly. We have been taught that loss is a tearing, a failure, a void where something once was. We cling to what's leaving, our fingers bleeding on the doorway. But from the vantage point of the inner garden, we see a different truth. Life is not a collection of objects to be kept, but a series of experiences to be lived. An experience is not diminished because it ends. A sunset is not less beautiful because it fades to night. In fact, its beauty is inextricably linked to its temporariness. Detachment allows us to hold experiences like we hold a breath. We draw it in deeply, savoring the fullness of it. And then, when it is time, we release it completely, making space for the next breath. Clinging to a breath already exhaled is suffocation. I knew a woman who ran a large public greenhouse. She loved all the plants, but she had a special section for orchids, exotic, delicate, breathtaking blooms. Their flowering period was famously short. Visitors would lament, "It's so sad they only last a week." She would gently correct them. "They don't only last a week. They gloriously last a week. Their entire life cycle, the years of growing leaves, gathering strength, culminates in this one brilliant, perfect week. If they bloomed forever, we wouldn't appreciate them. We'd stop seeing them." She never mourned a dropping petal. She would carefully note the plant's health, adjust its care, and look with equal interest at the new green spikes signaling the next cycle. She was attached to the vitality of the plant, not the permanence of the flower. Her joy was in participating in the cycle, not freezing one moment of it. When a rare orchid finally bloomed after 7 years of care and then faded after 5 days, her colleagues were almost tearful. She was radiant. "We witnessed it," she said. "Now it's resting. And so are we." This is how to meet the endings in your life, relationships, jobs, life phases. Honor the bloom. Grieve if you need to. Grief is just love for what was, expressed in the absence of its form. But do not confuse grieving with clinging. Clinging says, "This must not end." Grieving says, "This meant something, and I honor its passing." Then, like the greenhouse keeper, you turn your attention to the living plant, your own spirit. And tend to what is present, what is growing, what is preparing for the next bloom. When you live this way, you become immune to a particularly toxic form of pain, personalization. Most of our daily suffering comes from taking things personally. A stranger's scowl, a friend's forgetfulness, a partner's bad mood, we immediately make it a story about us. What did I do? They don't like me. I'm not enough. This is the ego's desperate attempt to be at the center of every story, even a painful one. Detachment offers the liberating truth: most of what people do is about them, not about you. Imagine everyone is walking around in an invisible bubble of their own history, wounds, fears, and moods. When they bump into you, their bubble distorts against yours. Their reaction, their sharp word, their withdrawal, their demand. is often just the sound of their own bubble adjusting, squeaking under pressure. It's the sound of their inner weather. If you take it personally, you are interpreting the squeak of their bubble as a commentary on the quality of your own. It isn't. A young apprentice in a glass-blowing studio was sensitive. If the master was quiet, the apprentice thought he was angry with him. If the master critiqued a piece harshly, the apprentice felt shattered. One day, after a particularly sharp correction, the apprentice was near tears. The master put down his pipe. He led the apprentice to the annealing oven, where finished pieces cool slowly. "See this vase?" he said, pointing to one with a beautiful spiral pattern. "When I made it, I had just received wonderful news. My hands were steady, my breath was calm. The joy went into the glass." He pointed to a simpler, slightly lopsided cup. "I made this one with a migraine. My jaw was clenched. The pain is in the shape." He looked at the apprentice. "You think my mood is about you? It is not. My mood is the temperature of my inner furnace. Your job is to learn to work with the glass in front of you, regardless of my furnace. And my job is to teach you about glass, not to manage your feelings about my furnace." The apprentice learned to separate the teacher's furnace temperature from the valuable heat needed to shape his own craft. He stopped personalizing and started learning. You can apply this everywhere. Someone's criticism is often about their own standards and frustrations. Someone's neglect is often about their own overwhelm or limitations. Someone's anger is often about their own powerlessness. This doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It means you stop internalizing their weather report as your identity. You can observe, your furnace is very hot right now, and decide to step back until the temperature is safe for a constructive interaction. Your worth remains constant, like the formula of the glass itself, untouched by the heat of another's moment. This discernment leads to the final, practical art we will explore in this part, the art of navigation. When you are not blown about by every external wind or internalized comment, you can finally read your own compass. This compass is your inner yes and no. It is not loud or stubborn. It is a quiet, bodily knowing, a feeling of expansion or contraction, of peace or unease. Detachment clears the static so you can hear this signal. You are no longer asking, "What should I do?" or "What will they think?" You are asking, "What is the next step that aligns with my inner peace?" Sometimes the answer is to move toward. Sometimes it is to step away. Neither is good or bad, they are simply directional. A seasoned river guide was taking a group down a familiar river after heavy rains. The water was high and fast. As they approached a well-known rapid, he felt a subtle but unmistakable tightness in his chest, his years of experience speaking through his body. His inner "no" was clear. The rapid was technically within their skill level. The group was excited, urging him on. He could have pushed through, ignored the signal, and likely been fine. But he pulled the boats to the shore. "We're portaging around this one," he announced. The group groaned with disappointment. As they carried the boats along the bank, they saw the rapid from a new angle. A massive tree, invisible from upstream, had fallen across the main channel, creating a deadly sieve. The cheerful rapid was now a death trap. The group fell silent. Later, someone asked the guide how he knew. He said, "I didn't know about the tree. I just knew my own." No, my job isn't to know everything. My job is to listen to that signal and trust it, especially when logic or pressure says otherwise. The river doesn't argue. It just is. My inner signal is part of that is. His detachment from the group's expectation and his own expert ego allowed him to heed the quiet wisdom that saved their lives. His power was in his trust of his inner navigation, not in his ability to conquer every rapid. Your life has rapids. Some you are meant to run. Some you are meant to walk around. The crowd, internal or external, will often cheer for the thrilling run. Detachment gives you the silence to hear your own true signal. So now, you move through the world. You carry your inner garden into the bazaar. You influence like sunlight, not like a storm. You meet endings as natural cycles. You stop personalizing the weather in other people's bubbles. And you navigate by your own quiet compass. You are engaged, but not entangled. Compassionate, but not consumed. Present, but not possessed. Now, we arrive at the heart's question. If I am not clinging, not needing, not desperate, can I still love? Can I still serve? Can my life still have passion and meaning? The answer is not just yes, it is a resounding, beautiful yes. Detachment is not the end of feeling. It is the purification of feeling. It is the process by which love is freed from fear, service is freed from ego, and meaning is freed from condition. Imagine a candle flame in a still room. That is love with attachment. It is beautiful, but vulnerable. A sudden draft, a criticism, a change, a fear, and it gutters, threatens to go out. You must cup your hands around it, constantly protecting it, living in anxiety of the wind. Now imagine that same candle flame placed inside a beautiful, sturdy lantern made of clear glass. The flame is the same. But now, the wind can blow. The drafts can come. The flame does not flicker in panic. It burns steady, bright, and safe. It can even be carried out into the storm, illuminating the path, because it is protected. The glass is detachment. It does not smother the flame, it makes the flame invincible. Your love, when surrounded by the clear glass of non-attachment, becomes fearless, durable, and radiant. This is the love that can truly see another person. When you need someone to make you feel whole, you are not seeing them, you are seeing a life raft. You are seeing what they can do for you. When you are whole unto yourself, your gaze clears. You can see them in their complexity, their strengths, their wounds, their beauty, their flaws, without immediately needing to fix, change, or absorb them. You can appreciate them for who they are, not for the role they play in your story. This is the greatest gift you can give another human being, the gift of being truly seen. An artist was renowned for his portraits. The wealthy and powerful sought him because he had a gift for making them look not just accurate, but idealized, stronger, kinder, wiser. He was paid handsomely to reflect back their best fantasy. Over time, he grew deeply empty. He was painting masks, not souls. He took a sabbatical and traveled to a remote coastal village. There, he offered to paint the villagers for free, with one condition: he would paint what he saw. He painted the old fisherman with his net-mended hands, the sadness and resilience both in his eyes. He painted the laughing child with a smudge of dirt on her cheek. He painted the tired midwife with gentle, capable hands. He did not soften or hide. He presented the portraits. The villagers did not see flaws, they saw themselves. They saw dignity, history, and truth. The old fisherman cried. "My son," he said, "only sees my stiff hands and thinks I am useless. You saw the work they have done." The artist's heart broke open. He realized his previous work was not art, it was commerce in validation. True love, like true art, is seeing clearly and having the courage to honor what is seen, not what is wished for. He returned to the city and lost his lucrative portrait business. He became a poorer, and immeasurably richer, man. This is detachment in relationship. The courage to see and be seen, without the filter of what we need the other person to be. From this place of clear-seeing love, we can look at service. Often, we serve with strings attached. We help, but secretly want gratitude, recognition, dependency, or a return favor. This kind of service is a transaction. It drains the giver and often burdens the receiver with unspoken debt. Detached service is like a tree offering shade. It does not ask the traveler to say thank you. It does not wilt if the traveler doesn't notice. It gives because giving is its nature. The traveler benefits, and the tree remains rooted, sustained by its own deep sources. Your acts of kindness, when detached from the outcome of gratitude or recognition, become light and free. You give because your well is overflowing, not because you are digging for praise. In a city, there was a baker who, after closing his shop each night, would bake 1 extra dozen loaves of his simplest, most nourishing bread. Just before dawn, he would walk to a bridge where many people without homes slept. He would leave the bread, wrapped in clean cloth, on the stone ledge, and walk away before anyone woke. He never saw who took it. He never received a thank you. A friend discovered his secret and asked, "Why? You don't even know if it helps." The baker thought and said, "The moon doesn't know if its light helps the night traveler. It simply shines. The oven, after a day's work, is still warm. The flour is paid for. My hands know the motion. It is no effort. It is simply the completion of the cycle, grain to flour to bread to hunger fed. If I stayed to see the thanks, it would become about me. This way, it is just about the bread and the hunger. That feels clean." His service was a closed loop of giving, requiring no external validation to be complete. It was an act of ecology, not economy. When you serve from this closed loop within yourself, you never burn out. Burnout comes from the friction of unmet expectations, the thank you that didn't come, the change that didn't happen. Pure service has no expectations. It is its own reward. This leads us to perhaps the most surprising fruit of detachment. Profound engagement with the present moment. We often think that to be detached is to be disinterested, floating above it all. The opposite is true. Attachment pulls us out of the present. It drags us into the past, regret, nostalgia, or throws us into the future, anxiety, anticipation. A mind attached to a past hurt is replaying an old movie. A mind attached to a future goal is living in a fantasy. Both are absent from the only place life actually happens, now. Detachment from past and future is the key that unlocks the door to the present. When you are not mentally time traveling, you are finally here. And here is endlessly interesting, sacred, and alive. A young apprentice to a watchmaker was tasked with repairing a complex, antique pocket watch. It was a masterpiece of tiny gears. He worked for days, frustrated. He was thinking about finishing it, about impressing his master, about how this would prove his skill. In his haste and preoccupation, his hand slipped. A tiny, irreplaceable spring flew across the room and was lost. He was devastated, convinced his career was over. The old watchmaker came in, saw his face, and saw the open, incomplete watch. He said nothing. He simply pulled up a stool, sat next to the boy, and pointed to the watch. "Forget it is a watch," he said. "Forget what it should do. Just look at it. What is here?" Shaking, the apprentice looked. He saw the polished brass of the plates, the perfect teeth of the remaining gears, the subtle engraving on the barrel. He saw how the light caught the edge of a jewel. He saw the intricate, silent world of metal and intention. He was, for the first time, simply seeing it. He wasn't thinking of success or failure. He was present with the object itself. In that deep looking, he noticed something: the design had a redundancy. There was a way to modify a different spring to serve the function of the lost one. The solution came from presence, not from panic. His detachment from the outcome, success/failure, allowed him to attach fully to the reality in front of him ***, where the solution waited. Your life is that watch. When you are attached to the outcome, to being happy, successful, loved, you are missing the intricate, beautiful, moment-by-moment engagement with the gears and jewels of your actual experience. The solution to your problems, the joy in your journey, is always found in the deep presence of the now. From this anchored presence, you begin to perceive the sacred in the ordinary. Washing a dish becomes a meditation on water and form. A conversation becomes an exchange of whole worlds. A walk becomes a symphony of sensations. Life stops being a problem to be solved and becomes a mystery to be experienced. This is not passive. It is the most active state of all, full participation without ownership. You can care for your garden without believing you own the weather. You can work on your project without believing you own its reception. You can love your family without believing you own their choices. This is the balance that the ancient traditions point to: passionate equanimity. You pour your heart into the game, and then you shake hands after the final whistle, win or lose. You love with everything you have, and you honor the other's freedom to be who they are. You plant the seeds with hope, and you accept the harvest that comes, whether it is what you pictured or not. A potter spent months creating her finest work for the annual town festival, where a famous collector would be purchasing pieces. She crafted a set of bowls so thin and graceful they seemed to hold light. The day before the festival, a sudden, wild storm knocked a tree branch through her studio window. It shattered the entire set. There was no time to make more. Her friends expected devastation. She stood amidst the glittering shards, took a deep breath, and then began to sweep. The next day, she went to the festival with an empty stall. People pitied her. She simply sat, calm and smiling. The famous collector visited every stall, unsatisfied. He came to her empty table and asked, "What do you have?" She said, "I have a story of beautiful bowls and a storm. And I have 2 hands that know how to make more." Intrigued by her calm, he commissioned her on the spot for a future piece, paying half in advance. He didn't buy pottery that day. He bought faith in the artist behind it. Her detachment from the specific form of her success, the bowls, allowed her to embody the unshakable substance of her craft, her skill and spirit. The loss of the product revealed the permanence of her process. This is the final teaching of this part: what you are is not what you have, nor what you produce. What you are is the quality of your presence, the depth of your well, the steadiness of your light. When you know this, you are free. You can engage in the world with passion, love with depth, serve with purity, and create with joy, all because you are not waiting for the world to give you permission, validation, or safety. You already have it, within. Now, we arrive at integration. How does this lived detachment feel as a life? Not as a technique, but as an atmosphere. Not as a practice for moments of crisis, but as the very ground of your being. Imagine you are no longer a character fighting the plot of your own story. You have become the compassionate author, and also the spacious page upon which the story is written. You feel the joy, the sorrow, the tension, the release, but you are also the silence that holds it all. You are both the wave and the ocean. The wave has its form, its drama, its rise and fall. But it is never for a moment separate from the ocean. It knows its temporary shape is an expression of a boundless depth. This is integration. You live your human life with all its beautiful intensity, while resting in the unshakable knowing of your true nature, vast, silent, and free. This is not a philosophy to believe. It is a reality to inhabit. And it begins with your relationship with time. For the attached mind, time is the enemy. The past is a gallery of regrets and fading trophies. The future is a fog of fear and desire. The present is just a narrow, stressful crossing between the two. You are always late, always running, always trying to outpace loss or capture happiness. For the detached mind, time is not a line, but a depth. The past is not a prison, it is compost. Rich, dark matter from which wisdom and growth have sprung. You do not live there, but you honor its fertility. The future is not a threat, it is potential, unfolding according to causes and conditions you influence but do not control. You plant seeds with care, but you do not dig them up to check on them. And the present is no longer a crossing. It is the whole world. It is the only place where you can ever actually be. When you release your grip on past and future, the present moment expands. It becomes roomy, vivid, and utterly sufficient. In a monastery known for its serene gardens, there was a beautiful, ancient sundial. It was carved with the Latin phrase, horas non numero nisi serenus, I count only the sunny hours. It sat in a part of the garden that was dappled with shade from a giant cedar. A visitor, a busy man obsessed with productivity, saw it and laughed to the gardener. It's useless here. It's in the shade half the day. It can't count all the hours. The old gardener leaned on his rake. "Ah," he said. "You misunderstand. It is not here to count all the hours. It is here to teach us to value only the hours when the light touches us. The shaded hours are for rest, for inwardness, for different kinds of growth. The sundial is not broken. It is wise. It reminds us that time is not a uniform commodity to be counted. It is a qualitative experience to be felt." The visitor stood silent. He had spent his life trying to count and control every hour, feeling guilty for the shaded ones of rest or difficulty. The sundial's detachment from compulsive measurement offered a profound peace. It was faithful to its true function, marking light, and utterly indifferent to the expectation that it should measure darkness, ****. Your mind can be that sundial. You can choose to count only the hours of your presence, your peace, your conscious engagement. The hours of struggle, of waiting, of not knowing, the shaded hours, are not failures. They are part of the garden's natural ecology. You do not need to fret because the sun has moved behind a cloud. You can simply be the garden, experiencing shade. From this reoriented relationship with time comes a transformation of your personal story. We all carry a narrative. I am someone who was hurt, who succeeds, who struggles, who is loved or unloved. Attachment makes this story solid. Like a statue of yourself you must constantly defend and polish. Detachment lets you see the story as just that, a story. A flowing narrative, not a fixed identity. You can acknowledge, this is the chapter 1 I'm in, without believing, this is the whole book of who I am. This allows for incredible freedom and resilience. If your story is, I am a victim, detachment lets you feel the pain of that chapter while knowing you can write the next one, I am a survivor, a learner, a grower. You are not erasing the past, you are refusing to let it be the sole author of your present. In a town that had lost its ancient library to a fire, the head archivist was tasked with rebuilding the collection. The townspeople brought him what few scorched fragments they had saved. For months, he worked in a temporary space, piecing together partial manuscripts, preserving scraps. One day, the new library building was finished. It was beautiful, with empty shelves waiting. The movers came to transfer the fragments. The archivist stopped them. He carefully placed each fragment into a simple box. Then, he took the box to the center of the grand, empty reading room and set it on a single pedestal. Above it, he placed a plaque, from the ashes, the fragments that remind us stories can survive. The rest is ours to write. He left the shelves empty. People were confused. Where are the books? They asked. He said, the old stories are here, honored in this fragment. But this space is not a museum for a lost past. It is an invitation. The empty shelves are for the stories we will live and write now, together. The town was transformed. The library became a bustling center of new writing groups, discussions, and creation. The archivist detached from the impossible task of recreating the past and created a powerful vessel for the present and future. He honored the loss without being imprisoned by it. Your soul is that library. You honor the fragments of your past, the joys, the wounds. You place them respectfully on the pedestal of memory. But you do not try to rebuild a burnt-down identity. You face the empty shelves of your future with curiosity, not dread, knowing you are the author of the next volume. This brings us to the ultimate integration, living a life of graceful belonging. When you are detached, you do not feel like an isolated fragment struggling to belong to other fragments, to a person, a group, an achievement. You feel that you belong to life itself. To the air you breathe, to the ground under your feet, to the cycle of day and night. You belong to the human experience, with all its mess and glory. This belonging requires no application, no approval. It is inherent. You are a thread woven into the vast tapestry. You can relax into the weave. From this sense of fundamental belonging, your actions in the world become graceful, timely, and appropriate. You are not forcing. You are responding. The Taoists call this Wu Wei. Effortless action. It is the action of a maple seed spiraling down to the forest floor. It is not passive. It is perfectly aligned with the laws of wind and gravity. It achieves its purpose, travel and planting, with no struggle, no angst. Recall the ferryman from an earlier story, with his rule of no shouting. Years later, his eyes grew weak. He could no longer safely navigate the river's currents in the fog. He faced the end of his life's work. One might expect bitterness. Instead, he sold his ferry to a younger, strong-eyed man. With the money, he bought a small plot of land on the bank, just upstream from the dock. He planted a willow grove. He built a simple bench. He became the keeper of the waiting place. When the wind was wrong or the fog was thick and the ferry couldn't run, travelers would gather under his willows. He would offer them tea. He would tell stories of the river's moods. He created a place of peaceful waiting, which became as important to the community as the crossing itself. He had seamlessly shifted his role from one who controlled the crossing to one who sanctified the pause. People said he seemed more at peace than ever. He detached from his old identity as the ferryman and allowed a new, more fitting form of service to emerge from the flow of life. His power was never in the boat. It was in his understanding of the river and the needs of the travelers. That understanding simply found a new expression. Your life will have these transitions, these necessary endings where an old form dies. Detachment allows you to meet them not as death, but as metamorphosis. The caterpillar doesn't cling to its caterpillarness, it enters the chrysalis. It becomes soup, and then, wings. So, we come to the end of our spoken journey. What is left is not a list of rules, but a felt sense. A quiet heartbeat of understanding. Detachment is the love that liberates. It is the strength that feels like softness. It is the engagement that feels like peace. It is knowing you are the gardener, the garden, and also the sunlight falling upon it. You will forget. The world will pull at you. Old hooks will gleam. When that happens, be gentle with yourself. Do not add a layer of guilt for being attached. Simply remember the map. Return to your courtyard. Sit by your well. Feel your breath. You are not starting over. You are coming home. From this day forward, may you walk through your life lightly. May you hold people with open hands. May you meet success and failure as passing weather. May you feel your feelings fully without becoming their prisoner. May you love without chains, work without obsession, rest without guilt, and give without expectation. You are not here to control the story. You are here to live it, witness it, and ultimately, to let it go, as gracefully as the tree releases the leaf, knowing that the life is not in the leaf, but in the enduring tree, and the tree is not separate from the forest, and the forest breathes with the world. This is freedom. This is peace. This is the silent, powerful gift of a detached heart. You are home. Welcome home.